Nations should preserve their culture and identity from the effects of globalization. As the Prime Minister, it is my duty to set the direction of this debate and define what it is that we, as a government team, are really going to be defending today. Now, the subject of our debate is composed of three key elements, and those are culture, identity, and globalization. Now, let's get defining. First on the list, culture. To put it quite simply, it is the sum of the total of the learned behavior of a group of people that is generally considered to be the tradition of those people and is transmitted from generation to generation. Now, we are not alone. We live in a society as wide as it is. We live in groups, we define ourselves through them, and hence, at least in some aspects, we belong to them. Thus, culture has a major role in shaping our quote-unquote identity. And now what happens when the other quote-unquote globalization intrudes, a phenomenon by which the experience of everyday life as influenced by the diffusion of commodities and ideas reflects the standardization of cultural expression around the world. Globalization becomes a trend towards a homogeneity that will eventually make human experience everywhere essentially the same. And research on globalization has shown that it is not an omnipotent, unidirectional force leveling everything on its path because a global culture does not exist. It is nothing but American culture in disguise. Yes, globalization is Americanization. Europeans, Latin Americans, Arabs, left-wingers, and right, pun intended, dread that local cultures and national identities are dissolving into an unsound American consumerism. And I assure you that globalization is nothing more than the imposition of American culture on the entire world. Seriously, just take a look around and count how many people's personalities consist of saying stuff like, I love Starbucks. Oh my God, I'm really craving me some McDonald's. But wait, let's take a selfie on my iPhone 11. Poor Android users. Seriously, I just cannot seem to wrap my head around the fact that people would prefer such unhealthy and basic lifestyles over something that could be special and unique. But I'll let my teammates elaborate on that. So just to make things clear, dear opponents, my teammates and I aren't saying that we should completely eradicate globalization, but instead just adopt things that are actually beneficial for our community or other communities, all while preserving a sense of identity, all while protecting our culture and roots. So to elaborate on that, I'm going to make use of this little handsome fella right here. Let's call him Mr. Bob. Now, Mr. Bob knows that that globalization is somewhat important for the growth of his country's economy, but he also knows that it is not, that its effects on his culture are fatal. So what does Mr. Bob do? He adapts his country's culture to globalization, and that's by marketing his culture's products. Thanks to globalization, he offers to global connections a doorway to the wonderful accumulation of arts and traditions that is his culture. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you please, please be like Mr. Bob? Thank you.
So, dear Prime Minister, globalization is not just Americanization. We're not talking just about Starbucks and McDonald's and stuff. We're talking about a culture, and I'm gonna defend it later. So, my most sincere greetings to you all, to you honorable judges, dear opponents, and dear audience. You cannot imagine how delighted and joyful my team and I are to debate such an interesting subject that concerns us all. And when I say all, I mean the whole world as diverse nations. 2 years from now, my family and I visit Spain, this beautiful country in Southeast Europe that was once colonized by Phoenicians, Greeks, and Rome. When I was there, I was so amazed and astonished about the beauty of this country and the charm of its culture. But being there made me experience a lot of deja vu. Like whenever trying Spanish meals, listening to traditional music, or even hearing some Spanish words. All of these things made me think about home, our dear and beloved Morocco. And when noticing all the similarities between Spain's culture and Morocco's culture, questions started rushing into my head. So, as a curious girl, I made my research, and the 4 keywords that jumped into my sight were culture, the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, and social habits, and etc. Globalization, the spread of information, technology, jobs, and products across national borders. So it's a process of introduction and interaction and integration among the people. So, culture globalization, it refers to the culture globalization that refers to the transmission of ideas, meaning and values around the world in such a way to extend and intensify social habits, social relations, identity, the fact of being who or what a person or a thing is. So, when I first read the subject, nations should preserve their identity and culture from the effects of globalization, the first word that caught my sight was effects. So guys, as we all know, effects can be positive as well as negative. But as a member of the oppositionship and as an optimist person, I will see the cup half full, aka positive effects. The positive effects of globalization are many. Not all good practices were born in one civilization. The world that we live in today is a result of several cultures coming together, like several cultures coming together. The people of one culture, if receptive, tend to see the flaws in their cultures and try to pick up the culture which is more better or more in tune with the times. So when societies welcome like people of other civilization and backgrounds, they are open to growth and not just staying in their little house. So it's like you open your door not to strangers, but like not like creepy strangers, but as you define them, as you said, like well. Well, okay.
In West Africa, says Siafa Kamara, traditional values have been overtaken by the Coca-Cola culture. The Michael Jackson style of music and culture is taken over, and we don't have the values to cope with it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am not going to stop on the definitions given by our pretty Prime Minister, and I am going to proceed in talking about globalization and culture. For that, I would be pleased to invite you to take a look on our modern days. Our lives are so deeply influenced by the globalized economy that often we do not even recognize it. It has happened so fast that our brains are struggling to catch up. Local identities and cultures are slowly disappearing, and unfortunately, no amount of nationalism or conservative politics will bring back the good old times. Every culture has been evolving in time. Now it's just happening very fast. Sit down, fasten your belts, and enjoy the ride. We are lucky to live in this messy, unique, overwhelming world. People are losing their identity, forgetting about their traditions and origins because they have to adapt to modern world needs. What once was in this globalized world, cities are becoming clones of each other, and
clones of each other, and people are converging into fake stereotypes. Gone are the unique cities that carry so much culture and history in every corner. Lost are the enriching cultural specificities that make from a society uniquely what it is. Restaurants serving this or that country's traditional food have been drawn out by the huge fast food chains. And beautiful traditional clothing is lost between the new bulk-made looks created by the big brands. People eat alike, dress alike, and look alike, whether you are in New York, New Delhi, or Casablanca. We are losing one of the things that count the most, which makes us special and allows us to stand out from the crowd. Our identity, the uniqueness in us. They say that one has to be affiliated to some culture or else one is lost no matter how good or bad it is. I want to be judged by my origins. United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, states that the cultural heritage of local people may become extinct because of the growing of globalization. This can be seen in Asia, West Africa, and in the Middle East. Globalization has also affected cultures of developed countries. In Greenland, for example, and many societies, many words in the language are related to the way people live traditionally. This makes the language to be in danger of diminishing in the society. Globalization has also affected religion, which has led to the loss of local identity in the cultural sphere. For instance, Syriani, the language spoken by Jesus, is vanishing in the few villages of Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. In Malaysia, many people have adopted English as their primary language and talk English. As we can see, media has also influenced the mode of dressing. In Western culture, in Western world itself, globalization has spread similar costumes as in China, where there is an adoption of Western cultures, costumes, and dress forms. Globalization may have a positive.
You said that globalization, you said that cultures are slowly disappearing, which is totally false, and there is nothing that shows that they are actually disappearing, and I'm going to show that later in my intervention. Who I am is always changing, not because I'm being fake, but because I'm always open to growth and transformation. That's human nature, or to be more precise, leader's nature, and I'm calling you, my friends, to do the same. Greetings, honorable judges, worthy opponents, and dear audience. Nations should preserve their culture and identity from the effects of globalization. Seems quite wrong, doesn't it? Well, when talking about culture and identity, we're talking about the core values that cannot be disappeared because of globalization. On the other hand, globalization is a system that helps us learn and explore about different society cultures without forgetting our own. Even though some advocates of anti-globalization view it as homogenization. Well, briefly, it's when one culture is the dominant one. As a matter of fact, globalization is not at all homogenization because it enhances cultural identity and diversity. How? Easy question. First, people are not objects of cultural influences, but subjects who can reject or integrate with culture. Besides, it has led to a rise in preservation of cultures and identities, and increased the intensity of contact and communication at the global level, and defined the boundaries between different groups more strongly. And while homogenization treats people like objects, globalization is totally contradictory to the principle of the lattice. It treats people like individuals with the great freedom to select their way of life, assert themselves as subjects, choose their own favorites from cultures and identities, and integrate them in their own way. Keep in mind that global tendency could not eliminate cultural diversity because it respects the fact that we have the right to stick to our culture, as well as it's given voice to people from various cultures In the past, you would have had to rely on the New York Times or the BBC to develop your opinions,
Point of
highly
information.
slanted towards one culture.
Points of information. Yeah, I just want to, like, your friend there, the leader of the opposition, has claimed that she likes and loves our culture, and so I just wanted to make sure that she's telling the truth by asking you to tell me what's the do you know Surah Al-Fil, like in the Quran? It's as simple as that. That's my question. Do you know it, yes or no? Do you know Surah Al-Fil? That's just a simple question, yes or no?
I'm sorry, it's totally bizarre. I'm sorry, it's a bizarre question. I'm not gonna answer that. And while homogenization treats people like objects, globalization is totally contradictory to the principle of the lattice. It treats people like individuals with a great freedom to select their way of life, assert themselves as subjects, choose their... No, I'm sorry. Subjects. No, what? No. Now, with the development of science and technology brought by globalization, it trains the world in our palm and played a crucial role of getting more diverse voices heard. So how, dear opponents, do you want us to preserve culture and identity from the effects of globalization when it's actually giving them a chance by taking them out from the depths of the wells and shedding light on them to open up and deliver their existence to the world so we can know and deliver their existence to the world so we can absorb some of their privileges? Thank you.
Good day, everybody. Globalization, a system, a discussed phenomena that has appeared more since the middle of the 20th century and presented from the very beginning its purpose, uniting things into one. But the truth is that its purpose has an endangerous meaning, which is to marginalize nations' culture and identity. Globalization is an integration of society that does not tolerate any of identities. Ladies and gentlemen, nations should preserve their culture and identity from the effect of globalization. And here is why. First of all, the Western culture. The globalization has led to the spread of Western culture and influence at the expense of local culture in developing countries. Yes. So many people of our developing countries start to adapt others people's developed countries. For example, fast food. Due to the availability of fast food, people nowadays go to KFC chicken, McDonald's, or Starbucks, or even more. There are some catchy Western companies, and actually, yes.
So, from this beginning of the debate, you're just talking about McDonaldization and fast food. Culture, globalization is not about, I said it in my intervention, it's not about like food and stuff. It's about mindsets and stuff. It's more than this. It's more than food. Like, can you show me it's like not more than food?
Well, you just came to my intervention, actually. I was gonna talk about something very important. I would love it, dear leader of the opposition. So, go into that? Okay. So rather than that, values and beliefs. In order to do this, I will try to compare between our Moroccan society now and before. So people in the past used to live together with tolerance. If someone was in need, all of his neighbors will provide help. What about celebrations? Everyone around the table, chatting, enjoying the moment. There was so peaceful reign. But this didn't last for long. Our society has become an industry society that has produced some values derived from its own natural principle, characteristic, and mechanism. such as division of labor, division of roles, contracting, waging, and actually this leads to the birth of values such as individualism and selfishness. Yes, globalization encourage the Western ideal of individualism, and this promote a homogeneous set of values and belief. And for example, that it is, for example, there's well, I'm gonna well, wait, which is yeah. For example, like it is really a threat for our nation's identity. Those identity who were a whole system of values and belief and perspective and culture. However, globalization has affected something very important in our culture also. Oh yes, art. Or more to be specified is the creativity, that is the ability to ignite one's imaginative faculties to visualize or evoke something. It is the ultimate objective of the art. So the power of computer and its all application to all aspects of life have been playing down upon the creative faculties of many people in the art. Trade and technological revolution have come not only to transform the revolution, but also the very minds of its people. Thank you.
Since the dawn of time, people have been undergoing various alterations, such as developing a sense of acceptance of the fact that we cannot possibly prosper without bringing ourselves into the open. Our cultures, our identity are in no way stagnant. People must adapt to the cultural openness and identity changes to assure their survival and longitude. Woefully, some people here standing right next to me publicly exhibit their xenophobic attitudes. But before I carry on with my intervention, allow me to clear any confusion regarding that term my partner and I repeatedly mentioned: xenophobia. Xenophobia is the fear or hatred of what is perceived to be foreign, as unfamiliar cultures, traditions, etc. It is usually thought that this term overlaps with racism, as this term endangers the country by causing chaos amongst its citizens, not permitting civilians from realizing that there's much more out there than just what meets the eye, such as knowledge, cultures scattered all over the world, awaiting for them to take benefit from it. Yet they chose to blind themselves with the implausible lies, almost idiotic lies. Feigning superiority by persuading themselves that they should preserve their their cultural identity from any external change, which is, in my humble opinion, completely selfish. This phenomenon, mostly known as globalization, eradicates all signs of xenophobic, ethnocentric behaviors by transferring salient knowledge from host to home countries. And accommodating people to the various changes we endure every day. And the adherents of this worldwide occurrence are surely having the upper hand, as globalization, as the results of globalization, such are the development of cosmopolitan civilians and bicultural individuals showing strong signs of cultural intelligence.
is causing to move towards a more homogeneous culture instead of heterogeneous national identity. Such superordinate identity could reduce or completely eliminate xenophobic attitudes or xenophobic views. Ladies and gentlemen, globalization is a vital step towards a more stable and solid globe where we'll all live a prosperous life. As it is also an occurrence that has a great impact on people's minds and souls by shaping national relationships and identities. Dear opponents, I ask you to keep in mind that any exposure to different cultures directly associates with an individual's cultural intelligence. The latter is defined as an individual ability to effectively adapt to new cultures. Thank you.
So, just talking a little bit to the leader of the opposition, when she talked about going to Greek and being amazed by its culture, that only assures me that that globalization is Americanization, because if she went to USA, she wouldn't have been amazed. The sole fact that she was amazed by a foreign culture means that globalization is Americanization. Now, when I wore the fuqiyah, they laughed. And I did that for the sole reason of showing you that in today's Morocco, wearing an outfit that represents your traditions, your culture, and your ideals has become a disgrace. It has become a subject to mockery and laughter. And knowing that the Prophet, peace be upon him, has praised the fuqiyah doesn't even make a change, because globalization has taught us to neglect his teachings, neglect him, neglect Quran, neglect Surah Al-Fil by telling me that it's a totally bizarre question. That's what globalization has taught us. Globalization has taught us that the West is the standard. They're the model, they're the standard, and they're the one to follow. And whoever doesn't follow them is retarded. That's what globalization is about. Now, talking
Point
about
of information.
Yes, of course.
So, first of all, I didn't visit Greece. I wish I did, but I said Spain. So, please pay attention to what I'm saying.
Spain or Greece, it's the same thing.
So,
Spain or Greece, it's the same thing.
We didn't laugh, second of all. You were wasting our time because you didn't like ask a real question. You asked can you tell Zama, can you clarify your question, because I don't get it.
So Surah Al-Fil, she clearly said it's a totally bizarre question, which implies that she doesn't know the surah. That's all I'm saying. Plus, Greece or Spain doesn't matter. That means that you were amazed by its culture. In our floor, there was literally one quote, one proverb in the Declaration that was written in Arabic. And you're here to tell me that globalization isn't about us learning French and speaking French and being proud of speaking French, while Arabic is just undermined. What else is there? Yes, there's a lot of things, actually, because Will Lakande, a freelance journalist, has said, and I quote, Western culture fuels globalization today. And as it did during the age of imperialism and colonization, helps reinforce the hegemony of the West. During this debate, the opposite team has chosen to be oblivious of the obvious facts which we've been spewing. So let me, just as a last resort, enlighten them the reality by telling them an indisputable, irrefutable fact. According to Britannica and the New York Times, experts are expecting by the end of this century, 90% of languages are going to be decimated. And who says languages is saying cultures. No two can disagree that languages are the archives of
of cultures. They're actually inherent to the definition of cultures. So again, could you explain to me if globalization is a good thing to us, why is it decimating our languages? Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, religion and culture are two different things. Just because she's not aware of a surah does not mean she's influenced by the, globalization. So, yeah, second of all, I want to start by clarifying a thing. So like identity is a concept that revolves around the perspective of how a person sees us. So the more people are included in this process, the more we learn about ourselves, the more discovered cultures, the more gained knowledge, the more we make sure that we're on the right way. We live in a world where we cannot remain cloistered at home with our only ideas in mind and believe in everything that we're told. We have to open up to the world, explore other mentalities, other convictions. Otherwise, how will we know that ours are correct or if we're on the right track? We need like a sort of landmark. Developed countries, for example, countries with high hopes, high standards, countries that will boost our economy, our policies, and especially our mentalities. Furthermore, globalization can enrich cultures by providing more access to materials and generally giving people more options to embrace their background. It's an opportunity that we should be grateful for because it's the chance for cultures are, let's say, more traditional, more family-oriented to say, well, you know what? Instead of complaining about globalization, let's actually use globalization to fight back and push our view to the world. Moreover, in a global perspective, you still keep your village values, but recognize that the world needs a new order to solve some problems and crises, and that countries might struggle to achieve by not having, first of all, the autonomy, and second of all, the power to do this by themselves. Yes, please.
When we were talking to our government whip, you said something that just because she doesn't know Surat Al-Fil doesn't mean that she's not
Influenced by globalization.
Doesn't mean that she's influenced by globalization. But what you are defending right here, right now on this stage is globalization and that we should be influenced by globalization.
Yes, but we should be influenced in the good things, not like religion. It's
That's
totally
exactly
another,
what I said. Religion is part of culture.
Religion is totally another subject. Yeah, like religion does not have anything. If you're enough believer, nothing will change that. Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, so. Like I said that we need a sort of landmark, developed countries, for example, in that globalization. Furthermore, globalization can enrich cultures by providing more access to materials and generally giving people more options to embrace their background. It's an opportunity that we should be grateful for. And we should acknowledge that we're all humans and drop the toxic behavior we call patriotism. It's like we're too proud to admit that we're all the same species. It's like, yeah, I'm a human, but I'm a human from this place or this one. We may do certain things slightly differently than each other. However, there are even more things that are identical in all of us, thus making very many similar things fall within our best interest. Okay, future is now. Does that tell you something, dear opponent? No? Okay. The 2020 February conference was hosted under the theme of Future is Now. We're preparing for it since the beginning of the year. Germany, United States, United Kingdom, South Africa, France, and people all over the world were sitting in the same places as we are, discovered our culture, enjoyed our favorite meals, exchanged with us their ideas and beliefs. Isn't that a sort of globalization, dear opponent? Weren't you the first one to be excited to be part of it? Like, I'm impressed by your audacity. Like, coming here, and the same spot they were standing, and telling people that we should protect ourselves from them. What a shame.
Should we go now? We should. So to answer you, Miss Leader of the opposition, you were talking about the fact that we just went on and on talking about how, you know, McDonald's and Starbucks and all of that is affecting our culture. And I just want to say that that's just one example of many. Because if I were to go on about how American culture is intruding on our culture, I wouldn't have ended this debate at 4 minutes. And also another thing that you said, wait, Oh yeah, you said the exact same that I said. I said that my intervention, and I made it clear that we're not saying that we should completely eradicate globalization, but instead adopt the positive effects that you were talking about and leave the other ones, all while preserving our culture and identity from the effects of globalization. Thank you.
So, first of all, you said we're just giving one example. We are in a debate. We should not base our arguments in one example, first of all. And when we talk about preserving our identity, it's like I'm Nadal Mdhun, and I'm not gonna talk to you because you were gonna influence me, or you're gonna influence me, and so I should preserve my identity. So should we like put soldiers in in our Morocco's borders to not be globalized? Is this what I'm telling? And you were talking, dear member of the government and government whip, weren't you last year in this same spot debating a subject which is Morocco should open its doors to French, to English rather than French? Is it like so paradox? Like little do you know that English or
First of all, dear leader of the opposition, I think that she doesn't get the subject really well, because we are actually defending that nations should preserve their culture and identity from the effects of globalization. And we are not saying that, wait, you should close yourself somewhere because you do not want to be affected by someone's identity or cultures or what they have to offer to you. Plus, I think that we all know that everything has a positive and negative side, and globalization has a negative as it has a positive impact on countries, but its negative effects on the cultural heritage is a treat, and we should preserve our rich culture from it. Plus, again, I'm all for cultural exchange and value it dearly. But I think that we should...
Well, you know, the very funny thing is, from the very first beginning of this debate, and I'm really sorry to distract your little hopes regarding your position, you were only talking about globalization, McDonaldization, and Americanization, as if globalization is only about food, and as if America is the only nation in the world. Well, let me tell you that globalization is more than that. It's getting people out of their circle, of their small circle, and let them to be more open and to be more open to each other, take some of their privileges and use them for their own development. And as well as it makes citizens as a global village. And you should know that our world is our lifeboat, and we are all in this boat together. And that but in a deeper sense, globalization promotes